What is up, everyone, and welcome back to some more of The Shell Part 3 Paradiso. In the previous recording session, we kicked everything off, and at first everything was nice and calm, right? The police were taking care of the investigation into Naori. Reiji was taking some time off for himself, because understandably he was going through some things. Mosky started going to therapy. Had a really hot therapist. It's very relevant to the plot that I tell you just how gorgeous this therapist is. I mean, and that voice, come on. But shortly thereafter, right. They find the painting. They find Shinzo Mamiya dies. They find one of his paintings they never released to the public. They hold an exhibit. One woman ends up getting murdered. A second woman ends up getting murdered. Both in the style of this painting, similar to kind of how the first Shell story went. So now, and I've cooked up some theories regarding this, right? What's going on with the mystery and whatnot, but there's still some holes that need to be filled in. So I haven't quite committed to anything, but I'm thinking. All right, I'm thinking. Don't get twisted. I'm always thinking. The only words you may hear coming out of my mouth are, "Damn, that therapist is really hot. I want her to speak sweet nothings into my ear." But just know, I'm thinking. I'm using my brain. But yeah, where did we immediately leave off? Is my backlog gonna actually tell me? Oh, it is. Okay. I spoke to Yaginuma. Something about the museum. Okay, so Reiji was talking to Yaginuma about the case. That was where we last left off. And then here we are now. Masaki left the agency in the evening. Without further ado, let's jump right back into it, shall we? Well, I'd seen a lot of police vehicles driving around the day. He hadn't heard anything from Reiji. So whether his boss didn't think he needed to know or had simply forgotten to call him was an open question. Regardless, Masaki had no choice but to do what he could. You know we're going to the hospital. Either we get to talk to Mitru, little homie, or we get to talk to my therapist. Masaki walked from Nakano Station to Kichiki Hospital. He was passing by purely on a fancy. You know what else is pretty fancy? That therapist. After all, he didn't expect Naori would actually show his face in his own cousin's hospital. Masaki was about to turn back when suddenly he spotted a familiar face exiting the hospital. Therapist?
Watanaki-sensei.
Yeah! Oh, it sure is. Kinda strolling over to Masaki like she hadn't a care in the world.
分かっていますよ。今日はたまたまここを歩いていたんです。
たまたま果たしてそうかな。
Kinda smirked.
どういうことですか？
君がここを訪れたことがもし偶然ではないとするならば。
I mean, it isn't pure chance. It really isn't. I didn't randomly decide where I was gonna go. I knew in my heart exactly where I wanted to go. And it's wherever you are, ma'am.
どう思うと言われても。
Actually, you know what? Just for the fuck of it, drop the text and whatnot. Thank you. Just gonna save that for later. Masaki was thrown off by the sudden swing in the conversation.
もしも他者の決定に君の無意識が反応していたとしたら、面白いと思うのかい?
Oh, now you're getting meta with it? I love you.
あまり面白いとは思いませんが。
Rather, the idea was so existentially dreadful that he preferred not to entertain it.
まあ、これを私が2分で考えている。
That's not the only thing you could pull out. Never mind. And yet you look so smug about it. Why? Because she's hot. Masaki knew better than to ask her that question, though. Right, we had to do. I forgot. They work in little passages from the Divine Comedy into our little loading screens there, and having to translate. Well, no, I had to translate the first time, but then I managed to find a website where it was like, oh hey, here's like the entire Divine Comedy translated for free on this website. So I'm like, well shit, don't mind if I do. I was of the mind that I needed to give this case a lot more consideration now that it all but officially been classified as a serial killing. Thus I retired to my home library and perused some documents after dinner. Specifically documents regarding Sei Maizono's murder. Today's crime scene had given me the impression that the victim had been killed solely to be made into a statue based on Exile of Paradise. But had that been the case for Sai Maizono's murder as well? Or was killing her what had sparked the culprit's obsession to begin with? Personally, I believe the latter was more likely than the former. Mainly because Sei Maizono's body had been discovered in her apartment. Today's victim could have possibly been killed by some random cutthroat, but it was a different story for Sei Maizono. It was like she'd been murdered for a different reason altogether, and only afterward had the killer decided to remake her into a pastiche of an angel. Yeah, it's almost like Sei Maizono was killed intentionally, as if she welcomed it. She wasn't randomly selected, she didn't fight back against her assailant. She welcomed it. She was the trial run. And now, And then, whether because they weren't satisfied with the final result or developed the urge to make more, the culprit sought new material. No, it's neither. It's neither. It's not that they weren't satisfied. In fact, I'd say it's because they were satisfied with the end result of the first one. They're like, well, now I can carry on. Now I can go forward with this. If that were the case, then there'd be no way to stop the killings for sure besides identifying the murder. For now, all we could do was warn women not to walk around unchaperoned like Yaginuma had suggested. What if both the victims had something in common, though? Of course, it was possible that only the culprit knew what that something was. Whatever the case, though, there wasn't much that could be done for the time being until Natsume finished her autopsy and ID'd the victim. Then, and only then, would I have a shot of figuring out what common ground the victim shared. Not that I was so optimistic about our chances of success. For now, visiting the museum tomorrow and getting a list of all the people who'd seen that painting came first. Though in all honesty, I knew it was going to be next to impossible to single out the killer from hundreds, if not thousands, of potential suspects. That's because you need another list. And that list is the list of Sei Maizono's students. Sei was the teacher, right?
Nii-san?
Let me double check that. I'm talking out of my ass, but I want to double check that. Sei Maizono was possibly a suicide. Apparently, she was an acquaintance of Masaki's, yes. Right, because this is Reiji's notebook, so he wouldn't be able to put a face to Sei, but yeah. The teacher lady. Keita Sasakira. Who was the second victim? Do we not have an ID on the second victim yet? Or did we? Hi. God damn, what was me? I love how they go through the effort of making them black and white just so you know they're dead. I see Nanako's got her own Sprite. She looks very nice. She's, arrested, but she looks very nice. So we don't... Wait. Did he literally just say that they're waiting on the autopsy result? Yeah. Yeah. My ass goes, hey, what was the name of the second victim? When, just 3 lines ago he said, I had to wait until Natsume finished the autopsy and ID'd the victim. Oh, I'm on fire today, folks. And I'm just getting started. I'm not even a full 10 minutes into this shit. Let's go. I groggily awoke to Yukari calling my name. My sister was clad in her uniform and a coat, indicating she was probably about to start her trip to school. So I said, yet I didn't even lift a finger. It is February. My face felt unusually cold even for a winter's morning.
そうですね。ラジオでは冷え込みが厳しいということでしたが。
どうした？
申し訳ありません。こちらの火鉢に炭を入れていませんでした。
Yeah, that'll do it. I finally got up and went to the living room after Yukari left. Now this place, on the other hand, was nice and toasty. Maybe I should have gotten out of bed sooner. I leafed through the morning paper in search of follow-up reports on yesterday's incident. Unfortunately, it only mentioned the discovery of the body and nothing else. Guess I'll have to hit up Yaginuma for updates then. However, I decided I'd stop by the museum first to gather information on the day they'd exhibited Exile of Paradise. I parked behind the art museum. The air was so cold that I was freezing my nuts off. As such, I wasted no time making a beeline for the entrance. I started looking for Stella as soon as I was inside. Didn't appear there were many visitors today, probably because the museum wasn't holding any special exhibits at the moment. Before long, I found Stella nodding off in a chair situated in a corner of one of the rooms.
Stella?
I reluctantly rustled her shoulder, though much as I felt guilty about it, slipping on the job wasn't exactly laudable either. Stella opened her eyes and stared up at me, cocking her head in response.
仕事中だろ?
Fortunately, she eventually recognized me, give or take a minute or a half.
どうしたの？
この前の天罰が公開された時のことを聞きたくてね。
天罰？ああ、あれ、何かあった？
公開時13日だったか。
Stella just shot me a befuddled look in response.
リスは来てない。
I get it. He said roster. You heard rooster. Yeah, I mean, that's probably not what was actually said, but you know.
公開時13日だったか。
No, he
ここに
definitely.
来た人のリストはないか。
Wait, maybe he did.
公開時13日だったか。ここに来た人のリストはないか。
I think he said list. Rista. Which honestly, Rista kind of still sounds like rooster a bit. So honestly, I can't even blame her there.
来てたまるか。いや、来館者の貴重名簿みたいなのがあればいいんだが。
最初から横文字使わないでそうい
You
う
just say that. Trying to get through to her is seriously a Herculean labor at times. I
あ
know,
の天
and I
罰を
love
見
it.
た人物を調べたいんだが。
たくさんいる。
だろうな。だから名簿を。
そんなのない。
Figures.
じゃあ、公開している時に不審な人物はいなかったか。
Oh, you did witness the person who walked out. You did. I know Stella witnessed the person that stormed out.
新人物。
Please don't stare at me when you say that.
例えば、報道の人間でもないのに写真を撮っていたり。
じっと見てた人ならいた。
それもみんなそうだったと言うんじゃないだろうな。
ううん。一人だけ。怒った風に見てた。
怒っていた。
Now that was news to me.
どんな男か覚えているか。
目が2つあって、でも2本。
I love you, Stella. Hell yeah, 2 eyes, had both hands. It's like, all right, we can rule out Toji. I honestly didn't know what I'd been expecting from someone who struggled to remember me practically every time we met.
もう少し具体的に。年の
She's
頃はど
like, I don't know, I didn't ask.
おじさん？
Again, could you not stare at me when you say that?
俺と同年代の男か。
Besides, it wasn't like we could arrest someone for glaring daggers at a painting.
他に気になる人はいなかったか。
コート羽織ってた人が。
そりゃそのくらいいるだろう。
That's what it was. That's what it was. I was trying to think back, like who was I thinking that was? It's the one girl that used to be like Yukari's friend before she started going to the girls' academy. That's the one who I think is involved in some capacity. Whether or not she's the actual murderer, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure she's involved in some capacity. The museum was never all that warm, probably to avoid ruining the paintings. Therefore, someone wearing a coat would hardly stand out in this place, much less this season.
今あの絵はどこにあるんだ。
Reiji, you stupid bastard. She specifically mentions a girl in a coat, and you don't think to follow up on that? You yourself say they're like a dime a dozen. So if one stands out, if there's a woman in a coat that stood out, don't you think you should follow up on that? If woman in coat was all she had to say, then that... You said you were asking for shit that stood out. Asking for shit that stood out. If woman in coat was all she had to say, that wouldn't make sense. Because obviously women in Co are dime a dozen, so clearly there's more to it, Reiji. Come on, use your big detective brain. Use your big detective brain.
公開はしてない。警察の人に言われたから。
Smart. After all, the more who saw it, the harder it'd be to finger the culprit.
心臓の絵、誰も引き取る人がいないから。
Still aside.
売れば結構な額になるんじゃないのか。
Though infamous for his crimes, he was still famous at the end of the day, after all.
遺族がいないから。
Still looked up. Looming over us on the wall was Girl and Shell. It was too big to be moved, hence why it still stood here for all the world to see, unlike the museum's other mamias. A single pane of glass was all that guarded it.
持って帰る？
Fuck no.
まさか。
Much as I wanted to snap back some witty retort, that was all I came up with. Yeah, like hell. I drove from Ueno to Sakura Ramon. Hopefully Aganuma would be there to field my questions. I entered the offices of CID Section 1. The Commissioner's desk, situated in solitude away from the islands of investigators' desks, something he never got shit for, surely, was unmanned. Swell. Came all this way for nothing. To make matters worse, I didn't know anyone else in the department. Not anymore, anyway. God damn it. Where the hell's Uozumi when you actually need him?
おや、時坂藩。
Yeah, I'll take you. All of a sudden, a familiar face popped up as if to present a compromise. It was actually convenient, since I was already needing to have a chat with her. I'm sure I hadn't expected to bump into her now.
なんでいるんですか。
報告書をお持ちしましたんや。せやけど、八木沼藩はお休みもろてどっか行っとるそうです。
Must be great having the clout to take a little vacation right after a homicide.
時坂藩だけでも聞いときます。
そうですね。お願いできますか。
はいな。まずはお名前ですな。国立にお住まいの飯山一子藩ですな。
Uh-huh. Yeah, she was from Kuni Touch Me.
国立ですか。そう遠くはありませんね。
It was less than 10 kilometers away as the crow flew, assuming she was referring to Kunitachimachi, that is. It was also close enough to the crime scene for the culprit to be active in that area.
19日の日中に目撃されたのが最後らしいですわ。ほいで、死亡推定時刻が19日の夜くらいやから。
発見の2日前ですか。捜索願いは出されていたんですよね。
んにゃ、それがな、仏藩はいわゆる不良でして、お家に帰らへんことはしょっちゅうだったそうです。
A delinquent, huh? Sure has been an upswing in them these days. They were the kinds of people who'd frequent U.S. military bars and cabaret clubs, as well as form cliques and get into all sorts of mischief. So basically, the same kinds of troublemakers every generation had seen since the dawn of human history.
死亡推定時刻が出ているってことは、死因も判明したんですか。
失血死でしたわ。頭部の挫創は頭蓋骨骨折を伴うものやおまへんし、ここからの失血では死
Right,
にませ
we
ん
did
け
see
ど
the scene where
ね。
she died. They fucking cut off her hands and she bled into the fucking bath.
では、腕の切断が死因。いや、切断面の生活反応が曖昧だということを言ってましたから。
Because they cut off her hands and then severed the rest of the arms.
その先の手首あたり、下腹部からの出血でしょうな。その傷を隠すために二の腕を切ったという可能性もありますな。
しかしそうなると、天使を作ろうとしたという推測と矛盾します。
I'm still of the opinion that acquiring raw materials to make angels was the murderer's primary motive. Thus, the idea they created the pastiche of Exile Paradise to hide fatal wounds sounded completely backward to me. I'd have bought into that were this only the first killing, but it was a different story with two bodies on our hands.
犯人の意図はまだ想像でしかおまへんのですやろ。
そうなんですよね。
Maybe I was unduly conflating this case with the previous serial killings I'd been involved with. Still, I didn't think I was wrong. Though that too may have only been my imagination. Husky ventured out of the agency that evening for the umpteenth day in a row. Though he suspected he'd make no progress in looking out, he was still more productive than just holding up in the office that day. Time to go to the hospital? Time to go to the hospital, baby. Let's go. Doctor. Or daughter. If daughter's there too, we'll talk to daughter. Masuki took a train to Nakano Station and went on over to Kichiki Hospital. He was aware of the odds of Naori having stopped here were as low as seeing snow in summer. However, the place was still essential for giving him ideas of Naori's whereabouts. Yeah, you gotta understand, as Masuki, I'm not giving two fucks about, like, finding the lead for Naori. I care about seeing where things go with Michiru and with Kaede. That's what I care about. No sooner had he stepped into the hospital than he did see a familiar face.
どうも朽木さん
Miss Kichiki. Chizuru?
まさきさん
Oh god, you are not who I wanted to see. You're like the last person I ever want to see. You suck. I'm like, oh boy, I either get to talk to Michiru or hot therapist. Like, oh, my options are just perfect for this location. And game says, haha, fuck you, Chizuru. Like, well played, game. Well played. Chizuru bowed, kimono rustling as she did.
どなたかのお見舞いですか？
いえそういうわけではないんですが
With how little the two of them talked, sometimes Masuki forgot that they were related. Oh, yeah, because of just how messy your family tree is. I'm like, wait, I'm sitting here like, wait, I thought the Kichikis were Naori's cousins, not Ayato's. And then, oh yeah, like everyone in that fucking childhood friend group was technically related because of how messy things were in that village. Still, while he'd been hoping to talk to Humiya, his sister would probably do just as well.
黒谷直りを覚えていらっしゃいますよね
まあ、あちらへお邪魔した際に会ったきりです。
東京で彼がいそうな場所はわかりませんよねやっぱり
そうですね。私たちはどこに住んでいるのかも知りませんでしたから。
Suda shook her head.
申し訳ありません。
いえそんな
Masuki hastily shook his head.
ご実家には戻られていないんですか？
帰っていたとしたら警察が放っておかないでしょうもうあの集落に何の力もありませんから
One sequestered settlement could finally modernize now that its leader had passed. That said, it would probably take some time for it to truly free itself from the chains of its history so long as the old guard kept calling the place home.
すみませんお邪魔してしまって
いえ、お仕事頑張ってくださいね。
Man, that sucks. I want to talk to Michiru. Or Kaede. Oh, victim number 3? Okay, this seems to be a hospital room of some kind. The room was dark as the night. Only the sounds of breaths at regular intervals indicated its resident was still alive. Someone on life support? Okay. Yaginuma set flowers in the vase by her bedside. It's his sister. All the while knowing the woman sleeping there would likely never see them. Her name was Eriko Yaginuma. Yep. 'Cause fuck, we got the rundown. Was that the first game we got the rundown? Yaginuma's elder sister had been in a coma ever since her failed suicide attempt. Yep. For over a decade had she lived on drip feed alone. She didn't even know the war had ended. Her cheeks were haggard, her eyes were practically nothing but sockets, and she'd lost just about all her muscle, yet she was alive all the same. No, she was being kept alive. Ooh, Bud, I hate to tell you this.
姉さん
I think there's a very good chance she ends up being a victim. Just her general appearance, Yaginuma knew he'd get no reply. If there's gonna get anything to drive Yaginuma to finish this case, I'm just saying. However, he'd never give up. Not until the day her eyes finally fluttered open in response. Okay. The game had to come in and remind us, hey, Yaginuma isn't a one-trick pony, alright? He's not a one-note character, he's not just an asshole. There's some humanity to them. They had to give us a little reminder. Like, we knew this. Like, if you read the previous games, you know Yaginuma has a little bit of humanity to him. Not a lot, but a little bit. But they had to come in, just remind us, like, hey, don't shit on Yaginuma too much. You can shit on him, but like, you know, moderation. Yukari removed her apron and took a seat on the sofa after finishing her Sunday morning chores. She sighed after pouring herself some tea. Between cleaning and laundry, her hands had been intimately acquainted with cold water up until just a few minutes ago, so the warmth of her teacup felt like heaven. Much as she'd worried about chapping her fingers, boiling up some hot water only to use it for cleaning, it seemed like too much of a waste to go through with. Suddenly the door opened, revealing her brother.
なあ、ゆかり。俺のハンカチなかったか。
背広のポケットに入っていたものでしたら。
他にないか。タンスを漁っても見つからなくてよ。
入れていてもあまり使われていなかったのではありませんか。
手を拭くのには使ってたぞ。
It sounds sanitary by any stretch of Yukari's imagination.
仕方ありませんね。
Yukari set down her teacup and got up. Her dresser was home to several hand towels and handkerchiefs. She started reaching for an indigo one when suddenly a mischievous whim came over her.
お待たせしました、兄さん。
She's gonna give him like a pink one. Yukari returned to the living room and handed Reiji a handkerchief.
ああ、ありがとな。
Brother pocketed the handkerchief without so much as sparing it a glance as he was wont. Huh? Her brother pocketed the handkerchief without so much as sparing it a glance, as he was wont to. Want is want without an apostrophe is won't without an apostrophe a word? Is that like an actual word? It is. Okay, hey, I learned something. I learned something today. I thought, yo, sometimes I like to be an asshole. See, that's actually why I Googled it, right? Because sometimes with these games, there are like spelling errors, grammar errors, and whatnot, and I like to poke a little fun at it. But I'm like, I don't know, Shirobune shit, from what I've seen so far with the rest of the Shell series, it's like, I don't know, they're not typically the ones to make these kind of mistakes. So I figured maybe there's a chance I was in the wrong, and I am. Want, like, how do you pronounce this, dictionary?
Want.
Want. So like, the same way you would pronounce it with an A. Interesting. But yeah, and it can be used as a noun, an adjective, and a verb. All three. Very versatile word. Anyway, it means accustomed. So as a noun, it's like a custom, a routine of some sort. A customary behavior. As an adjective, it's something out of habit. So it's a custom. So she's saying he didn't look at it because that's what he was accustomed to. But it can also be used as a verb, as to make or become accustomed to. Very versatile word. Interesting. We be learning things today. But anyway, go on. She was hoping you'd look
じゃあ
at.
行ってくる。帰りは多分夜になるだろうから
Oh, you kidding?
飯は作っておいてくれ。
She was trying to be a little silly. Be like, oh, I'm guessing either it's like supposed to be a girly color or like a girly pattern, like something like flowers or something. Or if she was being like extra silly, she hit a bug in it or something. I'm guessing she did something like that and was expecting him to look at it and have a reaction. And then she'd be like, I'm just playing, bro. I'll go get you one you actually want. But he was just like, oh, thanks. Yep, I'm leaving. She's like, wait, no, my prank has gone too far. Reiji departed the house before Yukari was even done nodding. Yukari retrieved the indigo handkerchief from her breast pocket. I just hope he doesn't actually wipe his hands with that one when others are watching.
まあ、構いませんよね。
So she brought the blue one with her to swap it out, right, when Reiji was supposed to notice and be like, Yukari, come on, you can't give me this one. She'd be like, yeah, it's a prank, big bro. Here's the blue one. Oh, I love you, Yukari. I love you so much. I got off the train at Ueno Station. The place was as packed as one would expect on a Sunday. They didn't call it the gateway to northern Japan without a reason, after all. That said, I'd never actually had any problems with using it as a rendezvous point. Oh, please tell me we get to see Takoyaki Man. Please. Tell me he's coming back for... This would be his 4th appearance, right? Because he was in the first Shell game, right? I'm pretty sure. Because he was definitely in Cartagra. He was definitely in the second Shell game. This man being the one reoccurring character. And actually, I know from other people who have read other Inogre games, he appears in other titles outside of the Shell series as well. He's just like the regular recurring character they love to throw in here. Can't wait to see him. For not once had Ueno Station's very own parallel universe, the area around the Takoyaki stall, ever been crowded, and today was no different. As expected, the only one around was a silver-haired woman. Yeah!
Yo, Koji.
Doji Aoki shook her head, stepping away from the wall she'd been leaning against. Where's the vendor? Okay, prove it. Show me the vendor.
買ってやればいいだろう、そんくらい。
お前は美術館の中にたこ焼きの匂いを振りまけというのか
You do realize you could just eat it outside, don't you? Yeah! God damn, somehow old man here got... Me personally, I think he looks younger. You compare this sprite to like any of his other sprites from the previous games. Nah, Homeboy got a glow up, alright? He still looks like an old man, but before he looked like he was like elderly, right? Like he was pushing 70, maybe even 80. Now, I could see this man being in like his early 60s. Somewhere in the 60s. Could be early, mid, late, somewhere in the 60s. This man dropped a few years with his new art style. I decided to ignore the doleful vendor and took off with Toji.
しかし、この前公開されていただろう。
Toji had come to the museum today in order to see Exile of Paradise.
所用があって東京を離れていたから
所用
Business? I then recalled the conversation I'd had with Toji about 3 weeks ago.
まさか、ひな神製薬を調べていたのか。確かその前の週に名簿を受け取っていたよな。
If so, then I felt guilty for being the reason she missed out on the exhibit.
いやまあその
No, she went somewhere to get some like unique miso, didn't you? Okay, scratch that. Something's definitely fishy here.
ちょっと府中に行っていた
Yeah.
府中だったらすぐそこだろう。今回の事件だってその隣の調布で起こっ
Then suddenly hit me. Toji had specifically mentioned she'd been away from Tokyo. So in other words,
後でもみじまんじゅうを持たせるから
holy shit, she does mean Fuchu in Hiroshima, doesn't she? The length she'll go for miso, I swear. Hell yeah, I love this woman. Toji and I entered the museum. The place seemed rather packed, probably because it was a Sunday.
しかし本当に見せてもらえるのか
俺の知り合いがいればな。公開は終わっているし、事件との関わりが深いだろうから。
Don't worry, I got the connections, alright?
天罰の見立てか
天警官。いや、千里教のやつか。ヤギ沼も言っていたな、確か。
I mean, kind of the same. Those were based off of like scriptures, but I guess it's similar.
あの時は犯人が自称芸術家だった
I mean, the culp, in a sense, sure. I get he was the one who did the things to the bodies, right? But the real mastermind, he wasn't an artist as far as I'm aware. Toji took stock of the exhibits.
まあ、あんなのを作ろうとするのはそういう連中だろうがね。
Naturally, I was skirting around the word murder in such a crowded place. Still, Toji's story had got me thinking. Sei Maizono, the first victim, had been an art restorer working for a gallery. And Keita Sasakura, her boss, had been the first to find the body. An artist, huh? That term could have been used to describe Shinji Mamiya too, though he'd been a novelist.
でお前の知り合いはどこにいるんだ
Probably asleep in a corner.
まあ。
Voice died in my throat when I saw an unfamiliar employee manning Stella's usual chair in the corner of the exhibit hall.
I know.
Hadn't seen her anywhere else. Given her distinct appearance, I doubted I would have overlooked her or mistaken her for someone else. Though one day you bring someone else along and fucking Stella's not here. Ultimately, I learned from the employee in the chair that Stella had the day off. Well, guess there's no seeing the painting without her.
Oi.
Suddenly, Toji laid her hand menacingly on my shoulder.
ここまで来て見られないとはどういうことだ
Oh shit. She's
い
pissed.
や、まあ、こういうこともあるだろう。
Broke out into one of the coldest sweats of my life. She wouldn't dare turn this museum into the scene of a murder, would she?
まあ、落ち着けよ。
Took out my handkerchief and wiped my sweat. Toji instantly shot me a befuddled stare in
もう
response.
少し身の回りのものは選んだ方がいいと思うぞ
Confused, I looked over the handkerchief Toji was so intently regarding. Only to find the white piece of fabric clasped in my hand was as frilly could be. Hell yeah. Damn you, Yukari. And again, I'm the idiot who didn't bother checking it in the first place. I love it. I love how that's the situation. I love how it's Toji of all people who catches him like, wait, hold up, dude, really? It's not like some random person on the street to where he's just like mildly embarrassed, like, oh no, some stranger saw me with this thing. Oh shit. It's fucking Toji. He's just like, dude, what the fuck? Yukari looked up, swearing she'd heard Reiji calling her. However, she just as quickly dismissed it as merely a trick of her mind. All of a sudden, the doorbell rang. That can't be Reiji. He would have just opened the door. Besides, Yukari was expecting company today.
少々お待ちくださいね
Yukari made that announcement, despite knowing her guests couldn't possibly hear her, and headed for the door.
お邪魔します
If you lay a fucking finger on Yukari, I swear to God. Chie bowed after entering the living room.
今日は誰
If
もいないので
anyone lays a
ゆっくりして
goddamn
いってください
finger on Yukari, I swear to God. Yukari took a kettle off the stove and poured some hot water into a teapot.
ゆかりちゃん今日はどうしたのですか
Chie sat down and faced Yukari.
ええ少しお話がしたいと思いまして
Yukari set down teacups and tea cakes in short order.
お構いなくですお
Oh
話と
my
いうのは
God, shut up, you fucking gossip.
恋の話なのですか
違います
Yukari denied that without missing a beat. Good on
違
you.
うのですかてっきりそうだとばかり思っていたのです
Bro, do not let this woman cook.
違いますよ
Yukari shook her
ちえ
head.
ちゃんは留学するのですよねそれはやはり絵を描くことが好きだからですか
そうですね
Chie cocked her head and maintained that pose as if she was lost in thought.
ゆかりちゃんは絵が好きではないのですか
そんなことありませんよ
Yukari shook her head. She could never hate
好
painting.
きなんですけれどそれを続けていくことができないと思っています
Yukari didn't believe she could make money off her art. Not enough to put food on the table anyway.
私は続けるのです
Chie's eyes burned with determination.
それで食べていけるかは分かりませんけどそれでも絵を描くことが
Respect.
先生との約束だったのです
That's right. She just recently lost her mentor.
ゆかりちゃんの夢は何なのですか
私の夢
That's a good question. Yukari sat down her teacup and gave the query some thought. What do I want to make of my life? She had a vague idea of going on to higher education before finding a job. However, she couldn't come up with a concrete goal to strive for, no matter how hard she'd racked her brain. Though not quite as bad as it had once been, there were still plenty who frowned on the idea of women working. Besides, only about half the population could actually afford to keep studying for as long as Yukari had. Most of them had already joined the workforce. As such, part of her wanted to carry on with school since she'd already come so far. Unfortunately, she didn't have a clue what she would do with all that education.
お嫁さんになりたいとか
Shut
言わない
up.
のですか
God. Stop. Stop trying to force Yukari into something with Masuki, you little fucking weirdo. Ugh.
言いません。
She never thought about that. Good. She hadn't even considered it a choice.
こ
Good.
の前のあの人なんてお似合いだと思うのです。
I disagree. However, Chie didn't let up. Get the fuck out of my house. Get the fuck out of my house. I told you that's not what we're here to talk about. Alright, you get the fuck up out of my house. I'm pissed at you now. Go
そんなの
murder someone or something.
わかりませんよ。
Yukari shook her head. She really wasn't. After all, she never actually felt that way about him.
まあ
Great.
ゆかりちゃんはそれでいいと思うのです。
Don't give me that shit. Don't act like you care about what she wants. She's told you several times over every time you bring it up. And you're like, no, I'm not interested in him. Nope, I don't really think about him like that. I'm not really interested in that kind of thing. You're like, okay. I'll ask again tomorrow then. Chie nodded to herself.
何になりたいのかなんてまだゆっくりと考えればいいと思うの
Oh
です。
my god, stop. But you asked me, you should give your future some more thought. Like, who knows, maybe you would make a great housewife. Like, yeah, she would. Doesn't mean she has to, alright? Fuck.
そうでしょうか。
You could tell Chie was just trying to put her mind at ease. Even though they both knew that deliberating too much on the matter wouldn't do her any good either. As per his recent routine, Masaki left the office in the evening. Must have been a colder day than usual, given how his left wrist was throbbing. Better go get that looked at the hospital. Though not so bad that he couldn't move it, it was still disheartening to know he hadn't fully recovered yet. That said, he knew he had no one but himself to blame. Masaki heaved a cloud of white steam, halting his spiraling depression right in its tracks. He couldn't afford to get lost in the past. Now, what he needed was to secure the future. That rested on him taking action here and now. Yeah, go to the hospital, bud. Masaki made his way to Kichiki Hospital from Nakano Station. There wasn't a soul nearby, probably because it was Sunday. Furthermore, the complete dearth of cars in the employee parking lot likely indicated most of the doctors were out. Masaki considered leaving when suddenly he spotted someone emerging out the back door. Hot therapist?
おや、まさきはん。
Even better. Let's go. Listen, Kaede may have her beat in looks, but no one comes close to Natsume when it comes to being silly, alright?
高城さん。
なんや、うちのことは夏目さんって呼んでな。
Oh, the boy's doing it. Masaki instinctively took a few steps back when Natsume sidled toward him.
何かあったんですか？
As far as Masaki knew, Natsume was simply a coroner with no official ties to Kichiki Hospital.
この間の仏派の話です。2件とも性暴行の痕跡は見られなかったっちゅう話が出てきましてな。
Natsume leaned against the hospital and popped a cigarette between her lips.
犯人は女性ですか？
アンさんは女の子を見りゃ襲うんですかいな。
そんなわけありませんよ。
うちも襲われちゃかないまへんわ。
それはありませんから安心してください。ですが、そういう行為に至るのは不自然じゃありませんよね。
So in my case, I didn't do anything when I... No, stop. It's all in the past.
犯人が不能やったちゅう可能性もありますぜ。
Yes, you're so right, Natsume. We need to narrow down our list of suspects to men with ED, obviously.
直ちに犯人が女性であるとは断言できないということで。
あの仏藩の状態を見りゃ、そもそもそっちが目的とは思えまへんからな。
Natsume tossed her cigarette into an ashtray.
まあうちは推理がお仕事やおまへんからな。ただ臨場するにあたって
被害者の。
Surmising that was impossible for Masaki, who'd never known Sei Maizono as anything beyond a mere co-worker. All I could imagine was that she died lamenting all the things she never gotten to do in life. And see, it's probably the exact opposite. From what I'm thinking, if things are playing out according to the theory I have laid out, I'm thinking it's quite the opposite. She probably died in a state of euphoria. Okay, probably not that much to the extreme, but you know. Much like how Masaki himself lamented all the crimes he'd committed.
ほな うちは行きます。
Natsume grabbed a bicycle that was propped up against the wall.
アンさんも決まり？お友達を見つけたいんですやろ？
え
Can I even still call him a friend? Not even Masuki himself knew anymore.